The Reluctant Alliance, the grand archivium of the Galactic Confederation, floated silently in the darkness of space, its crystalline spires glittering against the backdrop of distant stars. Inside, First Consul Thexis paced nervously, her 6 limbs moving in perfect synchronization across the polished floor. The room was filled with representatives from over 200 worlds, yet an eerie silence prevailed. "The Voidborn have breached the Epsilon barrier," she finally announced, her voice carrying the weight of impending doom. "Our outer colonies are falling. The fleets of 7 systems have been completely annihilated." The holographic display at the center of the chamber showed the devastation. Entire worlds reduced to barren husks, their populations harvested or destroyed. The Voidborn, a species that had emerged from the dark regions beyond the galactic rim, consumed everything in their path. They were not conquerors, they were exterminators. "We have deployed every weapon, every strategy at our disposal," continued Thexis, her compound eyes reflecting the grim data projected before them. "Nothing has slowed their advance. Our scientists estimate total Confederation extinction within 3 standard cycles." The room erupted in panicked murmurs. Some representatives began shouting demands for evacuations, others for last-stand defenses. But one voice cut through the chaos, old but powerful. "There is one option we have not considered," said Elder Korvax, the ancient Mantidian whose species had been among the founders of the Confederation. "One species that might stand a chance." The chamber fell silent once more. Thexis knew what he was suggesting before he spoke the name. Humans. The word hung in the air like a curse. For centuries, the Confederation had maintained a strict quarantine around the Sol system, home to the species deemed too dangerous to be allowed among the stars. The quarantine had been established after the brief but brutal Terran Wars, when human unpredictability and aggression had nearly torn the young Confederation apart. "That is madness," hissed Representative Xylox of the Araxian regime. "The humans are savages. They would sooner destroy us themselves than help us." "Perhaps," replied Korvax, "but they are savages with a talent for warfare that no other species has matched. And they have continued to evolve in isolation. Who knows what they might be capable of now?" Thexis raised a limb to quiet the renewed uproar. "The Elder speaks of desperation, not preference. If we face extinction, does it matter who saves us, or how?" After 12 hours of heated debate, the decision was made. A diplomatic vessel would be sent to Sol, carrying representatives from the Confederation's founding races. The mission would be led by Thexis herself, alongside Elder Korvax and 4 others chosen for their historical knowledge of human psychology. As their ship approached the edge of the Sol system, they encountered the first surprise. No quarantine beacons, no warning signals. The carefully maintained barrier that had kept humans contained for centuries was gone. "Life signs detected throughout the system," reported their pilot, a cephalian whose tendrils worked multiple control panels simultaneously. "Massive energy signatures on Mars, Venus, and several Jovian moons. Artificial structures detected on all major bodies." Thexis felt a chill run through her exoskeleton. "They've expanded throughout their system. Send the diplomatic signal on all frequencies." For several tense minutes, there was no response. Then a voice, cool, measured, unmistakably human, came through their communications array. "Confederation vessel, this is Earth Control. Your presence is unexpected. State your purpose." Thexis stepped forward. "This is First Consul Thexis of the Galactic Confederation. We come seeking audience with your leaders on a matter of utmost urgency." A pause. "Transmit your biometric data for verification." After they complied, another voice joined the conversation, deeper, authoritative. "Consul Thexis, this is Admiral Helena Vega of the United Earth Alliance. Your request is granted. You will be escorted to Luna Prime Station." As their ship approached Earth's moon, they were met by sleek, black vessels that moved with impossible grace. The human ships were unlike anything in the Confederation's records, No visible propulsion systems, no weapon emplacements, yet the sensors indicated power levels that dwarfed their own. Luna Prime Station was a marvel of engineering, a city built within and around the moon's craters. As they docked and disembarked, Thexis found herself surrounded by humans in crisp uniforms, their expressions unreadable. Admiral Vega greeted them personally. She was tall for a human, with dark skin and eyes that seemed to evaluate everything at once. "Welcome to Luna Prime. It's been 300 years since we've had official contact with the Confederation. I assume this isn't a social call." Thexis straightened her posture. "No, Admiral. We come because our civilization faces extinction. A species we call the Voidborn has emerged from the dark spaces. They consume everything in their path. Our weapons are useless against them. And you've come to us for help," Vega finished, a hint of irony in her voice. "The species you quarantined for being too dangerous." "Yes," admitted Thexis. "We need the very qualities we once feared." Vega's expression remained neutral. "Follow me. The Council will want to hear this directly." The human council chamber was a vast amphitheater, its walls lined with artifacts from Earth and beyond. 7 humans sat at a curved table, their ages and appearances varied, but all possessing that same evaluative gaze Thexis had noticed in Vega. After Thexis presented their case, including all the devastating footage of the Voidborn's advance, the chamber fell silent. Finally, an elderly human with a lined face and silver hair spoke. "I am Chairman Marcus Chen. 3 centuries ago, your Confederation decided humanity was too dangerous to join your community of worlds. You built a cage around our system and left us to our own devices. Now you come asking for our help." "We acknowledge the irony," said Elder Korvax, his voice carrying the wisdom of his many years. "But we also acknowledge our desperation. If the Voidborn are not stopped, all sentient life in this galaxy will perish." Chen leaned forward. "Before we discuss terms, you should see what we've become in our isolation. Admiral Vega, please show our guests the Prometheus facility." What followed was a tour that left the Confederation representatives speechless. Humanity had not merely survived in isolation. They had thrived. Their technology had advanced beyond anything the Confederation possessed. Quantum computing, dark matter manipulation, gravitational engineering, all developed without the constraints of Confederation law. Most shocking of all was the Prometheus project, a weapon platform that could theoretically destroy stars. When questioned about its purpose, Vega simply replied, "Insurance against the day the quarantine failed." Back in the council chamber, Chairman Chen laid out humanity's terms. "We will help you fight the Voidborn, but not as soldiers in your army. We will fight as equals, with full autonomy. And when this is over, the quarantine ends permanently. Humanity joins the galactic community with full rights and representation." Thexis knew that accepting these terms would fundamentally alter the power structure of the Confederation. But she also knew they had no choice. "We accept your terms," she said. "How soon can your forces be ready?" Chen smiled for the first time, a small gesture that somehow sent a chill through Thexis's body. "We've been ready for centuries, Consul. We've just been waiting for the right moment." As their ship departed Luna Prime, Thexis watched the human fleet assemble. Thousands of vessels, each more advanced than anything the Confederation possessed, moving in perfect formation. She turned to Elder Korvax. "Have we made a grave mistake?" she asked quietly. The ancient Mantidian's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. "Perhaps. But it is a mistake that might save us all. And after all, is survival not the first imperative of any species?" Thexis had no answer. As she watched the human armada prepare for war, she could only hope that the ferocity they had once feared would be enough to save them all. The tidy of battle. The arrival of the human fleet at the Confederation's command center on Proxima Centauri III sent shockwaves through the Allied forces. The sleek, obsidian vessels of the United Earth Alliance dwarfed the largest Confederation battleships, their hulls seemingly absorbing light rather than reflecting it. As Admiral Vega's flagship, the UES Nemesis, took position at the center of the defensive formation, Thexis observed the reactions of her fellow commanders. "These are not the humans we remember," whispered General Zolfon of the Arthian Dominion, his 4 eyes blinking rapidly. "These are something else entirely." The War Council convened in the central chamber of the Proxima Citadel. Holograms displayed the advancing Voidborn fleets, a seething mass of biotechnological horror, consuming everything in their path. Already, 17 systems had fallen, their populations either harvested or eradicated. Admiral Vega studied the tactical displays with clinical detachment. "Your defensive strategy is fundamentally flawed," she said, her voice cutting through the room. "You're fighting as if they think like you do. They don't." Thexis bristled slightly at the critique. "Our strategists have analyzed every encounter. And yet you keep losing," Vega interrupted. She manipulated the holographic interface, zooming in on the Voidborn fleet formations. "Look at their patterns. They're not an army. They're a swarm. They don't have supply lines or command structures as you understand them. Taking out their largest ships won't disable them." The human admiral's fingers danced across the controls, highlighting specific movements in the Voidborn advance. "They communicate through a quantum entanglement network. Every ship is connected to every other ship simultaneously. But there's a limit to how much information can pass through that network at once." Elder Korvax leaned forward, his ancient eyes gleaming with sudden understanding. "Information overload." Vega nodded. "Exactly. We don't need to destroy their ships. We need to flood their network with so much conflicting data that they can't coordinate. Chaos is our weapon." What followed was a complete restructuring of the Allied forces. Under Vega's direction, the Confederation ships were divided into smaller, more agile units. Each was paired with human vessels equipped with quantum disruption technology, devices that could send false signals through the Voidborn's communication network. The first engagement under the new strategy took place in the Sirius system. As the Voidborn fleet approached, the Allied forces appeared to be in disarray, ships moving erratically, some even appearing to flee. The Voidborn pressed their advantage, stretching their formation to engulf the scattered defenders. It was precisely what Vega had predicted. As the Voidborn extended their network to coordinate the attack, human ships activated their disruptors. The effect was immediate and devastating. Voidborn vessels began firing on each other, their formations breaking apart as conflicting commands flooded their network. Now, Vega's command echoed through the communication channels. The Allied forces converged, hammering the disorganized Voidborn from all sides. For the first time since the war began, the invaders were forced to retreat. News of the victory spread through the Confederation like wildfire. Systems that had been preparing for evacuation now rallied their forces. The humans had proven their worth, and more importantly, they had proven the Voidborn could be defeated. But the war was far from over. The Voidborn adapted quickly, developing countermeasures against the quantum disruption. 3 more major battles followed, each more desperate than the last. The Allies won some, lost others. But slowly, the tide began to turn. 6 months into the campaign, a breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Eliza Reyes, a human xenobiologist, discovered something crucial about the Voidborn's biology. "They're not a natural species," she explained during an emergency council meeting. "They're engineered, designed to consume and convert organic matter into more of themselves. But their creators built in a failsafe." The holographic display showed microscopic structures within the Voidborn's cellular makeup. "These are shutdown sequences, genetic kill switches. If activated, they would cause a cascade failure throughout the entire species. How do we activate them?" Thexis asked, hope rising in her voice for the first time in months. "A specific frequency of radiation," Reyes replied. "But it has to be delivered directly to their central node, what you might call their hive mind." General Xalthon shook his head. "Their central node is protected by their largest concentration of ships. It would be suicide to attempt a direct assault. Not if they don't see us coming, said Admiral Vega. Her expression was grim but determined. We've been working on something. A ship that can move through spaces the Voidborn can't detect. The ship was called the Shadowdancer, a human vessel utilizing technology that even most of the United Earth Alliance didn't know existed. It could slide between dimensions, becoming effectively invisible to all known detection methods. One ship, one shot, Vega explained. We get close enough to deploy Dr. Rice's shutdown signal, and we end this war. The mission was approved, but with one significant modification. First Consul Thexis insisted on joining the crew. If we're risking everything on this gamut, the Confederation should be represented, she said. Besides, this is our war too. Vega reluctantly agreed, and 2 days later, the Shadowdancer departed for the heart of Voidborn territory, the system once known as Rigel. The journey was perilous. Even with its dimensional shifting capability, the Shadowdancer had to navigate carefully to avoid detection. Twice they nearly collided with Voidborn patrol ships that appeared suddenly in their path. As they approached Rigel, the true horror of the Voidborn became apparent. The once vibrant system had been transformed. The planets were being systematically disassembled, their materials used to construct a massive structure around the central star, a Dyson sphere that pulsed with malevolent energy. The central node, whispered Dr. Reyes, her face pale in the blue light of the monitors. It's drawing power directly from the star. Captain Marcus Chen, son of the chairman and commander of the Shadowdancer, studied the structure. We need to get closer. The signal won't penetrate that sphere from here. They edged the ship closer, using the debris of destroyed planets as cover. As they approached the sphere, they detected a gap, an entry point where raw materials were being fed into the construction. That's our way in, said Chen. Prepare for dimensional shift. The transition was unlike anything Thexis had experienced, a sensation of being everywhere and nowhere at once. When reality stabilized, they were inside the sphere, surrounded by the pulsing organic machinery of the Voidborn's central node. Begin transmission, Chen ordered. Dr. Rice activated the shutdown signal. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then, slowly, the organic machinery around them began to convulse. The pulsing energy flickered and dimmed. Alarms blared throughout the ship. They detected us, reported the tactical officer. Voidborn ships converging on our position. Hold position, Chen commanded. The signal needs time to propagate. Thexis watched as the first Voidborn vessels appeared, their biomechanical forms writhing in apparent agony as the shutdown sequence spread through their network. But they were still functional enough to attack. The first hit rocked the Shadowdancer, breaching its outer hull. Emergency shields deployed, but they wouldn't hold for long. Signal at 60% propagation, reported Dr. Reyes. We need at least 80 for a cascade failure. Another hit, more severe than the first. Systems throughout the ship began to fail. We need to withdraw, urged the tactical officer. Chen shook his head. Not yet. We finish this. Thexis watched the human captain, understanding now what her ancestors had feared, that absolute determination, that willingness to sacrifice everything for victory. It was terrifying, but in this moment, it was also their only hope. 75%, Reyes called out, her voice strained as the ship shuddered violently around them. We're almost there. The Shadowdancer lurched again as another Voidborn vessel slammed into their shields. Warning lights flashed across every console. Hull integrity critical, reported the tactical officer. We can't take another hit like that. Chen's grip tightened on his command chair. Reroute all power to the transmitter. Everything we've got. Captain, Thexis said, moving to his side. My species can survive vacuum exposure for short periods. Let me help. Chen studied her for a moment, then nodded. Engineering deck. They need to manually realign the power couplings. Thexis moved quickly through the ship's corridors, passing injured crew members and damaged systems. When she reached engineering, she found chaos. A breach had exposed part of the deck to space, and the human engineers couldn't reach the critical power relays. Without hesitation, she stepped into the vacuum, her exoskeleton contracting to protect her vital organs. The cold was immediate and biting, but she pressed on, manipulating the relays with her specialized lens. Back on the bridge, Rise shouted triumphantly, 85%. It's working. Outside the ship, the void-borne vessels were convulsing, their organic components breaking down as the shutdown sequence cascaded through their network. The massive structure around them began to disintegrate, sections peeling away like dead skin. 90%, Rise reported. We've reached critical mass. The sequence is self-sustaining now. Chen nodded, his face grim but satisfied. Get us out of here. All power to engines. The shadow dancer turned, its damaged systems struggling to respond. As they accelerated away from the collapsing Dyson sphere, Thexis returned to the bridge, Frost still clinging to her exoskeleton. We did it, she said, her voice weak but filled with wonder. We actually did it. Chen gave her a respectful nod. That we did, Consul. That we did. As they emerged from the Rigel system, they witnessed the final death throes of the Voidborn Collective. The shutdown sequence had spread throughout their entire network, causing systematic failure in every ship, every structure, every cell. What had once been an unstoppable force of destruction was now dissolving into inert matter. The news spread quickly through the galaxy. The Voidborn were defeated. The threat was over, but the victory had come at a cost, and the galaxy would never be the same. 3 months later, representatives from every Confederation world gathered in the Grand Archivium once more. This time, the chamber included a new section, seats for the human delegation, with Earth's flag prominently displayed. Chairman Chen stood before the assembly, his voice carrying easily through the vast chamber. 3 centuries ago, you feared what humanity might become. Today, you know. We are indeed dangerous when threatened, implacable when roused to action. But we are also builders, creators, explorers. We ask not for your fear, but for your partnership. Thexis stepped forward, taking her place beside Chen. The Galactic Confederation formally welcomes humanity as full members, with all rights and responsibilities therein. The quarantine is officially lifted. The chamber erupted in applause, though Thexis noticed many representatives still looked uneasy. They had been saved by the very qualities they had once feared. Humanity's aggression, their unpredictability, their willingness to embrace the unconventional. As the ceremony concluded, Elder Korvax approached Thexis. So begins a new era, the ancient Mantidian said. One with humans as partners rather than pariahs. Do you think we made the right choice? Thexis asked quietly. Korvax's compound eyes glimmered with something like amusement. The universe is full of predators, Consul. We've just allied ourselves with the most dangerous one of all. But perhaps that's exactly where we need to be, beside them rather than in their path. Thexis watched as human delegates mingled with representatives from 100 different worlds, their conversations animated, their gestures expressive. They were indeed unlike any other species in the Confederation, passionate, adaptable, and possessing that unique combination of creativity and destructiveness that had saved them all. For better or worse, humanity had returned to the galactic stage, and the universe would never be the same.